Welcome to Licensed Poetics, a podcast about books and art. I'm your host, Vuong, and we are back with another 4-person episode. The reason today's episode is a 4-person one is because it's a collaboration between Licensed Poetics and All the Best podcast. We've got in the room Derek, our interim host.
Hello.
Woohoo. And we've got... well, that was my attempt at personality.
Woohoo.
And Phoebe.
Hello.
And Isabella.
Hi.
All the Best is a podcast and radio program where emerging Australian storytellers learn how to make audio stories.
It's a storytelling program based at FBI Radio, which is an independent community radio station in Sydney that mainly supports young and emerging artists. So All the Best has existed for over a decade. In like the world of podcasts, it was really, quite early on. And
incredible.
It was inspired.
Senpai.
Yeah.
Senpai, like...
It's like senior. It's
like older.
Yeah.
It's just an anime
like
thing.
sign of respect, right?
Yeah.
It's like the year ones. They would call the year fives. I love that.
We're now explaining anime culture on this now.
The thing is, you would say, like, senpai noticed me, right? Because you want the older cool kids to notice you.
Yeah, just like,
Hey,
ooh.
this is exactly what's happening here. All the Best is LP's senpai. LP has been running for what, like seven months? The goal is to run it for a decade, Derek. So I'll see you when you're 35.
Isabella Lee is a production assistant and social media coordinator with All the Best, an innovative content developer with strong creative eye. Isabella uses these skills to bring stories to life. She is endlessly curious about the people and connections around her.
Phoebe Adler-Ryan is a content strategist and the executive producer of All the Best. A blue sky thinker, Phoebe has spent several years helping creative organizations to grow their content, partnerships, and audience. She has a special interest in incubating the next wave of audio drama, having completed a thesis on the topic at Goldsmiths University. Welcome to LP.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Woohoo! Okay, I think now is the time to announce what content we're making for All the Best, Derek.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, so...
Does that mean you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
Or you can do it if you want to.
Happy to fling it back.
Okay, so you know how we talk a lot about the creative process here on Licensed Poetics, and instead of just talking, we're actually gonna
do something.
it. Yes. So very excitingly, Derek and myself are co-writing a story, an audio story that will hopefully be released on All the Best in the near future. Should we tease what the story is about?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll keep it very vague. I'll just say it's a political story because all of my writing is political.
Yeah, it's a I can't do air quotes. They won't know that I'm doing air quotes.
He's doing air quotes. You can just say
political
that.
story.
Considering how it ends,
Yeah.
I think,
well,
you
anyway,
need the air quotes.
we'll see.
I actually think your story has connections to the story that Isabella is working on as well. So
Yeah, we can talk about that in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
episode today.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good. We can actually talk about what our guests are doing and not what we're doing. Segueing into the Buy Me a Coffee.
Yes, you remembered. Yes, buy me a coffee. If you'd like to support Licensed Poetics, please head to buymeacoffee.com/licensedpoetics. It'll really help a lot.
And it'll pay for us coming up with better segues.
Yeah, we need better segues.
We can outsource segues.
We need a segue consultant, social media management, creative director. I also need a scheduler, sorry.
A schedulist.
To help me schedule.
It's a degree in scheduling.
Hey, that's what all the important politicians have, right? They have schedulers.
Do
like
they?
a personal assistant.
Yeah, I saw it in House of Cards, so I just assumed that was true.
Certainly. Yeah.
Oh my god, it's a show that you've actually seen.
Yes, I have seen it. The running joke on this podcast is that Derek will mention TV shows and movies, and I will not have seen them.
And then you'll mention books, and I won't have read any of them.
That hasn't happened as many times as me not getting movie references. It's because you're constantly referencing stuff. You have a vast personal library.
That's a really nice way to put it. It means like I spend a lot of time having no life. That's what it means.
We've received feedback from listeners that I need to show more personality. on this podcast. And it's something that I really struggle with. And I think I have a story today. And after I tell it, you'll see why I've been reluctant to share my personality, because I'm just the biggest loser, the most awkward loser ever. So the story is, I signed up for a literary event, which I won't name. I went to the venue on time, and I stood at the door, and I took a scan around the room at the event. The people already there, and I was so intimidated that I didn't even go in. That I left before I went in. So the reason I was intimidated, right, is because for some reason, I misjudged what type of event it was. I thought it was going to be like Bankstown Poetry Slam. And have you guys ever been to Bankstown Poetry Slam? Phoebe's nodding. Isabella's shaking her head. You should go at least once. And I think they have events every month. The regular slam, poetry slam. And it's a really easy environment. Like, you can go in. It's fun if you go with friends, but it's okay if you go alone as well. You just go in and you take a seat, and then everyone's kind of facing the stage, and then you can talk to people, but you can just sit quietly by yourself. I thought the event was going to be like that, but turns out no. It's more of a cocktail mingling kind of thing. Exactly.
I feel like bone chills.
And then I don't drink alcohol. I'm inappropriately dressed, and everyone in the room, is glass in hand mingling, and I didn't know anyone, and the entire room was old and white. And I literally just took one look, and I was like, nah. And that's how I missed a literary event. Yeah.
Do you feel like you missed out on a lot? Because it just sounds like it's just like a mingle. Did it have a purpose or an objective, or like you just one of those? It was like a network. It sounds like a networking event.
No, I think there was going to be some reading there. Mingling was part of it.
Oh, okay.
And I guess I just didn't have the courage. I can't deal with that.
Fair enough. But I don't think that says anything about you being lame. That was just like an event that,
yeah,
that's a bit scary.
Yeah, that's not enough personality, mate. You gotta show more personality.
What?
Than that.
No, I feel like someone else with a regular amount of social ability might be able to just walk into that room and make some friends. I'm sure everyone was nice. Like, I'm sure they were lovely people, and they wouldn't bite me or anything.
I think it's a reasonable reaction, honestly.
Yeah, it's very relatable. I was making a podcast in Edinburgh for this big TV festival, and I had something go really wrong on the recording day. And so I'd been frantically trying to re-record. And I finally got everything uploaded. And I was walking through the streets of Edinburgh, oh my God, thank God. And the host of the show I worked with was sitting having a drink, and I walked past him, and he was like, oh, Phoebe, are you going off to the networking event? And I was like, no, I'm going to get an ice cream. That's all I want right now. I don't... I know that Dame Judi Dench and incredible people are here, and Judi Dench, I don't know if she was at the event. I don't know if she'd gone to the networking, but they were amazing people. And I was like, no. I want an ice cream.
Priorities. No, that's so...
I feel so seen. Thank you for sharing that, Phoebe.
It'd be better if you came back to the event with an ice cream and you
or at least something to hold. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you don't drink, it's well, what am I going to do with my hand?
Know.
You should have gone to buy an ice cream from across the road, come back and just been oh, nice to meet you.
I would just look so... I know it's in my head, but before I even walked in, I can already picture myself looking so out of place in that room of finely dressed, middle-aged white people. And then it's that mental image, you sent me the meme earlier today about how some people not having an image in their minds when they read stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm not one of those people. I can see things. And I can already see myself sticking out like a sore thumb in that crowd.
I was going to make a movie reference.
Do it.
In Doctor Strange when he astral projects.
Out of the body.
Yeah. That's exactly
he
how
gets it. What? Out of the what?
He
astral projects. So he physical body's floating, but then his soul
just flies around.
Flies and floats around. And then that's how I was imagining you.
Just like
Same.
looking at yourself from
Yeah,
above and being
yeah.
like, I don't
I'm
enjoy
not
this.
feeling well right now.
I don't like this shot.
Yeah, it's that, wave of awkward energy hits you and you suddenly don't know what to do with
You
your
like
hand.
freeze.
Yeah.
Do you think anyone saw you though? Like, it would only be bad if someone. If,
Don't make me feel bad. Don't feel worse about it.
that's the only way it would be awkward, right? Like, if someone saw you, was like, oh, she just like, I guess she went to the wrong place.
I think one person saw me.
Oh, okay.
And you know what? Let them think that. Let them think I went to the wrong place. Oh, you know what I did after? This is very bookish related content. I left that event and I went to a bookshop.
Just calm yourself down.
Yeah, it made
It's the ice cream.
That's your ice cream.
That's your ice
That's the
cream.
thing. I think sometimes you just need to, listen to what you actually need.
Exactly. I do not need a networking event. Oh my god, what if there was one person there that would have given me a publishing deal?
You know what? Let's just hope that person actually felt like going to the bookshop too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a nice movie.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about the bookshop, I'll do a little book haul. I bought 2 books there. One is Shame by Annie Ernaux. Derek, you know how I love Annie Ernaux.
Oh, yes. Actually, I do.
So she's the author of
It's like,
Simple Passion.
Yeah, that was the
and
one I was trying
The
to work out.
Happening. Yeah. So she's a French author and she's known for writing deceptively simple personal narrative essays. And another book is called The End of Eddie by another French author, Edouard Louis. And it's also, I think, like autobiographical fiction. And I think the Olympic spirit is really affecting me. And that's why I bought 2 French authors. Oh, actually, Simple Passion is actually featured in the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games.
what was it that famous?
It is.
So I didn't know how famous it was because you told me about it, and I was like, "Oh, this seems actually like an interesting book."
It is an interesting book, and it is very famous. I think it's considered like a modern classic.
Oh, that's
in
cool.
France, yeah. And she recently won a Nobel Prize.
Do I have it?
You have it. I gave you my copy.
Oh, I better go find
Don't
it.
tell me you lost it.
No, I'm
my
sure
God,
it's
I will be
somewhere.
so incredibly angry.
Did you mark it up?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like with all my books, yeah. Do you guys write in your books when you read them?
I don't think I read often enough to say that it's a habit, but I have in the past.
Good for you.
Yeah, I think it depends on the way in which I'm interacting with the book. Like a lot of books I reach for are science fiction and fantasy, like real escapism. So I want to put down my critical lens and not have a pen in my hand in those moments often.
Oh, I love that. Put down your critical lens.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, I wish I can do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I can't do that ever.
I don't think I've ever been able to do that. Like, I'd just
Yeah.
be sitting through like my roommate will be watching like whatever the new Star Wars like series is, and like I don't know, like 10 minutes in, just be like, I fucking better not be twins.
Oh, Acolyte.
Yeah, and it was twins.
So you're like making writer's notes on the script.
That's what I do for like movies. I don't do it for books so much, but like for like if
I
I'm
do it
watching
for movies
if I'm watching
too.
a show, usually that's when you start like you do the thing where you like map out a character arc, and you're like, oh, this is fun.
Nerd. Yes, let's go to our regular reading update section. And okay, I'm gonna kick off with an extremely controversial take. I'm still gonna get cancelled, Derek.
Oh, you're getting cancelled.
I'm-
Shit. Okay, this is
cancelled.
more than I.
Actually, no, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
In our last episode, I mentioned I was reading On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by
Yeah.
Ocean Vuong. And in our last episode, I said I'm 1/3 into the book. It has some flaws, but it doesn't irk me so much that I want to quit. Turns out I quit. I put down the book at about halfway through because I just could not deal with the... Oh, do you know what purple prose is?
No, what is it?
Have you heard of purple prose? I think it's when writers describe something with an excessive amount of detail and excessive amount of feeling or implied feeling behind those details.
Melodramatic.
Yeah,
sort of-
melodramatic, exactly. It was a lot of that in that book. So On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous is a very, very popular autobiographical fiction, I think, by Ocean Vuong. And the whole book is meant to be a letter from this young Vietnamese American boy, well, not that young, like he's like 28, a letter to his illiterate mother. They grew up, like they suffer from the trauma of the war, and about the boy's first love. So it's kind of like a coming of age journey that you go on with Ocean Vuong. And there was just he's known for being a poet, right? And he tries to be very poetic.
It's a poet's novel, right?
Yeah, it's a poet's novel. And I keep comparing it to The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, because that is also a poet's novel. And I liked The Bell Jar so much more than I liked the On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. And I think it's because The Bell Jar has more of a stronger narrative behind it. Because I think I've realized at the end of the day, that's what a novel needs. It needs some sort of narrative, not just emotional vignettes, like fragmented one next to the other. Because if you do that, if you keep doing that, like I suffer, well, I could take it for like 60 pages. But once you hit the 100, 120 page mark, I'm like, wow, this just creates an insufferable self-importance that, you know, like you're saying that these moments matter to you. I don't get why it should matter to me. Like, I'm not your therapist. Ocean Vuong, I'm not your therapist. Like, I paid money to read this book. You didn't pay me money to listen to your trauma. And I feel really bad because I really, really wanted to give this book a fair chance because so many people love Ocean Vuong and so many people love this book.
Do you think you can understand what appeals to other people about it?
You're about to say self-importance, but
no, I actually don't know why
people like
Have
it.
you guys read it? Do you like it?
I've read sections of it. So I think someone shared it with me. So I haven't had the experience of reading the full work.
Because I also tried to read it because my aunt recommended it to me, and I was reading it, and I was just like, it falls into that. I think we're coming on like the down wave of it now, but people loved really into like a combination of like trauma porn and like
well, Asian representation
and like diaspora stories.
Yeah.
And like to me, that's like super tired. Look, personally, it's very tired. Like I'm also Vietnamese, and I couldn't give a shit about this guy's like. I was like, I'll give you points for being like gay in Vietnamese, but like otherwise.
I think you're completely right. And it's that being the first of the representation thing, right? Like it's such a popular book and it's got that place in popular culture where like how many other gay Vietnamese young growing up experiences have you read before that in the very top bestseller slot, right? None.
But
that's
now, like,
it's got to be the first.
But once you like, you've seen that diaspora story enough, you just go like, I get it. Like, my parents are also like, and it's just like, and it feels very cheap.
In the book, there's so much like his mom beats him. So 1 second she beats him. 1 second they're really intimate. 1 second they're having a lot of fun, and then she beats him again, and then like these vignettes, right?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't go anywhere. I don't know what he's trying to say, but then I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna but that's what real life is, right? Real life, 1 second your mom hates you, and the next second you're having fun. I know, but just like it goes over and over again. It just doesn't go anywhere. And I think people love his poetic language, or people think his language is poetic. There's one line I sent you that one line, right? Is when he's with his first love, this white boy, and they're like in his room, we made friction of each other and fiction of everything else. Do you like that?
No. Not personally, but I'm not a very poetic. I'm like a famous poetry hater, so I'm not. This book was not for me, to be fair. Yeah.
We made friction of each other and fiction of everything else. I think that's one of those lines that if you use it like once in a book or like once in a poem, it's fine. Like it makes you think about it. But if every line is like that, it loses its.
It's this very particular style of poetry that I've only ever come across in like straight up smut, which is like I don't know what it's called. It's like it's
what, erotica?
But it's like erotic poetry or whatever. Like it's a very specific style, and like I don't know. Like after a while, it feels a bit amateurish, but.
And then a good thing we brought up Annie Ernaux because she also writes personal narrative essay. Her work is like the polar opposite of Ocean Vuong's. Her work is the type that I really, really love.
Because it's flat and detached.
Exactly. She's analyzing her own experience with a very critical eye. She's not trying to romanticize it in any way. Or like, yeah, she's like analyze it like with the precision of a scientist. I don't know. I think it is personal preference. I'll give it that. And I'll just say that her style of writing is one that I much prefer. Isabella and Phoebe, would you like to share your reading updates? Or your any stories?
Watching, whatever you guys consume.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, Isabella?
TikTok reviews, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I feel like this is pretty. It kind of goes along the same criticisms that you had for your novel. But I read Sally Rooney's latest book, Beautiful World, Where Are You? Yeah, yikes. That was definitely a novel.
Wait, so how
Only by the literal definition.
Quite literally.
It has pages and between covers, you know.
Yeah.
Wait, is it Hello World? Beautiful World, Where Are You?
Yeah, Beautiful World, Where Are You?
Is that her latest book?
That's her latest one.
Damn.
And she's also coming out the new one soon. 'Cause that one-
Intermezzo or something.
Because that one was Beautiful World was released in 2021.
She's huge right now.
Yeah, I guess for context, I was just, as you do, like strolling in Vinny's and I saw it, I'm like, oh, I'll pick it up because I don't really want to buy this.
Vinny's,
full price.
nice.
Yeah,
Is it $2?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, that's a good.
That's the best.
It was a bit of a score as well. So like, oh, Sally Rooney in the op shop. Let's go. But yeah, I've read Conversations with Friends and Normal People and I liked them. So I was, like had open heart, open mind for this one. But yeah, and I really enjoyed the premise.
What's the premise?
These 4 characters are trying to find meaning in a world that is, kind of like environmentally dying, politically in shambles, socially, super like polarizing.
Is it for young people?
4 young people.
Is it in Ireland as well?
Yeah, set in Ireland. So I really enjoyed that premise because I think that's very relevant. But I really didn't enjoy the characters, particularly Felix. Yeah, he was really icky, and he like didn't deserve being with Alice because he was just like, yeah. And there were big sections but they send like long emails between each other, and they're really interesting. They're very philosophical. Like they talk about like, is beauty dead? The commodification of art, those types of things. So then when they go back to describing their everyday lives outside of these emails between each other, there's like a very big disconnect, and it felt flat, like hard to connect the inner monologues of these characters with these characters' lives. And I was like, I really don't care, actually.
Do you get inner monologue from all of them or just one lead character?
All of them.
Wow.
All of them.
That seems like that could get exhausting if like you were saying, if the characters aren't interesting. That's like I have to
There's
listen
a disconnect.
4
right?
people that I don't like.
Yeah, no, I think it's more on the dislike because they all have, and I get that they're lonely, and she also mentions COVID at the end, which was a bit of a jump scare because I'm like, oh, okay.
So if you had to recommend this book to someone, who would you recommend it to? There are a lot of Sally Rooney fans out there.
Yeah. I think if you're hot off the John Green train, which I don't know if teenagers these days are.
I like John Green. I liked him when I was a teenager.
Do
you think this book is similar?
Not similar, but it's like the natural progression. Like if you like John Green, then I feel like you'll probably like Sally Rooney.
If you
know what I mean.
If
I don't
you
know.
liked John Green and then you never grew out of it, like
yes, actually,
that's what you're
exactly
talking
what
about.
I mean. Yeah.
Thank frick I grew out of it.
Did you? Your favorite book is like Catcher in the Rye.
How dare you? Go away.
I was gonna ask you guys as well. Have you guys also watched Normal People, like the show?
I have. So the only Sally Rooney book I've read is Normal People.
Yeah.
I didn't like the TV production in the way
really?
that a lot of people seem to get into Sally Rooney through it.
Yeah.
But saying that, I've never wanted to pick up another of Sally Rooney's works after Normal People, because there was something about it whereas I felt like, okay, you've captured something that was like, I guess, just pre-COVID, that was kind of in the zeitgeist of a way that a lot of young people finishing uni and moving into the world were kind of feeling, that felt kind of new at the time. And then by the time it was like done by the BBC, I kind of already felt like the zeitgeist had moved on from it. And yeah, I was actually speaking just earlier this week to one of my friends who works in a bookshop, and she was saying how Sally Rooney is one of like the biggest authors of the year for them. Like they're going to have a midnight event for like the unboxing of the new book. So there's that much of an engaged audience in Sydney, for instance.
Wow.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, millennials, she described them as well, like that they can have events which I like associate with Harry Potter.
I was just going to say J.K. Rowling.
Yeah. So I found that really interesting. So I was like, okay, so like there's clearly something that other people still feel about those works. But personally for me, the reason I never I think I, picked up another one but never bought it or never sat down to read it was because I kind of felt like
You'd gotten everything you need to get.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, unless, someone turns around and tells me this is radically different. She's doing something so different now.
What did you say you didn't like about the production of it? Like anything in particular?
I think it was just that it was like reliving exactly what I felt like I'd gotten out of the book, which was that like grain to the world. It was that like world of feeling, which you beautifully put as like, I guess, romantic loneliness. And I was like, well, I don't know. I kind of did it once in the book.
So you watched it after the...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So like watching it, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't like feel like this was transformative, or did something quite different.
You say you were very into like fantasy and stuff like that. Are you watching any of the fantasy shows at the moment? Oh, that was a very podcasty question. I'm really proud of myself.
Very good.
What was I mean, like I have watched like Wheel of Time and what's the Six Crows adaptation?
Shadow and Bone?
Shadow and Bone. Yeah. I really enjoyed those. But my most recent like sci-fi fantasy binge was N.K. Jemisin's trilogy. I think the first one was called The 100 Kingdoms. I can double check it and get it accurate for you guys. But this fantastic world where gods and humans coexist. I love female science fiction writers because I don't come across that many of them. And it was so playful in the way that you're introduced into this world through one character, from this character then now shaping this outside world that you're discovering. I thought that was like just done so well. And then each of the books is from a different perspective.
That's awesome. That's like, yeah, but I do like that. I love like worlds that don't wait for you because it feels very, I hate the hand holding part of, that's my personal ick with fantasy a lot of the time. It's like, oh, by the way, there's this magic system, or like, oh, like I've, crows are the souls of your dead ancestors. It's like, just show the crow doing the thing. Like
what about say when there's a new character being introduced into the world and someone's taking that new character through and then teaching the new character stuff and therefore teaching the audience stuff?
Yeah,
you think that's still hand holding?
Yeah, like it's literally like it's. I mean, I like Dante, like I like Inferno and stuff, but like.
Wait, Inferno, Dan Brown?
No. Dante's Inferno.
Oh.
Yeah. I was thinking about... Sorry, Inferno, Dan Brown. I have been thinking about Dan Brown a lot, actually. This is my reading update.
Oh.
I liked Da Vinci Code.
I did in high school, yeah.
Yeah. And I reread... Like, the ideas are cool, but it's too trashy, and then, like, there's too many sexy scientist ladies. Like, I
know, like, everyone is like that, American. Well, Robert Langdon, and one sexy foreign lady who holds all the secrets. And I tried to read, what was that one? That one with the AI? I think I tried to read that one in adulthood.
Angels and Demons?
No, not that one. But I read the Da Vinci Code in high school, and when I have grown into an adult, I was like, I'll give him another chance.
And you just couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
Was it a sexy AI?
I think Origin.
Okay.
Origin. No, it was just the book was trying. I think Origin, yeah. The book was trying to talk about the tension between science and religion. But then what it did was it just kept repeating the phrase science and religion, science and religion, instead of like actually exploring it in any way. And then like, the secret to the puzzle is like one line of poetry. And it's like, the line of poetry says, religion dies, science reigns. I'm like, wow, it took you the entire book to figure that one out. Hey.
That's horrible.
I couldn't do it.
That's really bad, actually.
But maybe the Da Vinci Code isn't as bad.
No, the Da Vinci Code is like it's a surprisingly tight story. Like I was thinking about the structuring of like angels and demons as well.
Yeah.
Like it's just actually quite impressive.
His books are very like screen
They're
influenced,
almost
right?
they're almost like
movies.
made for screen. But in terms of like actually good books that I've been reading,
Yeah.
A Visit from the Goon Squad. If anyone's like read that. It's basically like it's kind of like Love Actually in the way that it's got like 13 separate stories and they're kind of interlinked but not really, and they're in the past and the present and whatever.
Jennifer Egan?
Yeah. And I actually stumbled across it in a weird way because I know that it was like a bestseller for a while, but I wasn't really reading books then. I came across it because I was listening to like an album that was by, I don't know if anyone listens to like Sonic Youth or whatever, or basically.
I love how you like
never mind.
lowered your voice
Anyway,
and whispered the name of the artist.
anyway.
That's gonna-
Shame.
Anyway, like there was an album I was listening to and I was like, this is a cool album. And it was like, oh, this is based on like a book by Jennifer Egan called The Candy House. It's like, The Candy House? What the hell's that? And then I realized it was like a sequel, and I was like, because I was gonna buy the book. And then I was like, okay, so it's a fucking sequel. So I went back to the first book, which is A Visit from the Goon Squad. Turns out it was a bestseller. I'm like, oh, okay, it must be good. I'll just buy it.
Wait, so are all the stories interwoven?
Yeah, a little bit. So it'll be like, oh, shit. It's like 13 Catcher in the Rye stories. It's like stories of like loss and innocence coming of age, but like later than it should be happening, sort of.
Like when the characters are older?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like the first story is, I haven't finished the book yet, but it's like the first story is about like a kleptomaniac who lives in like, she just steals shit all the time. She's got like a therapist and she just goes and lies to a therapist while she's like stealing shit
Wow.
and feeling guilty about it.
I feel like it's a very ambitious kind of setup, right? All these stories. Yeah. at the
It's
same
really cool. And I like stories that have a lot of empathy for the characters. And I don't know if it's because I've got like this very deep love of TV and sitcom. I like stories that have a lot of empathy for characters, but they don't baby them.
I like that. I think stories having empathy for its own characters, like the writer takes the characters seriously.
Yeah. And like it can say like seriously in the way that, I guess, in the way that you have a good friendship. Like if you're good friends with someone and then someone comes up to you, and I'm sure you guys have like good friends and your friends know your flaws, right? So they just come up to you and they're like, that's kind of shitty. You can't be doing that, man. And it's like the effort of like coming up to somebody and saying, you've done a bad job at this thing. Are you okay? Like,
See, that's the thing with Sally Rooney. I don't think her stories have empathy for their characters.
Yeah.
I think they're created for people to project their own self-hatred onto it.
Yeah, and the self-hating era is kind of over, right? Like we're past that now, are we?
Speak for yourself. No.
I mean, people are trying to be very,
Just not the dominant flavor.
yeah.
Like leave it in, but yeah.
If the whole thing is just hating yourself in a really like detached way, the same way you'd hate someone else, it's like, man, that's exhausting.
Okay, I think we really need to hear from Phoebe now. You mentioned a play that you watched in London, and I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, so before I touched audio, I always loved like literature and theatre and drama. That was actually my first degree. I did like a lit degree. And so wherever I am, I try and go and see some plays. And recently I went to see Jez Butterworth's new play, The Hills of California. So Jez Butterworth is a contemporary British playwright. He's written Jerusalem and The Ferryman, which are two works that kind of made quite big waves in the contemporary theatre world. He writes these family dramas that kind of take you in to the chaos and like fractiousness of a family. And then as the story evolves, like unsettling or dark kind of threads, often from the outside world, start to like weave their way in and emerge into the plot of the play. And then, this kind of like amazing transformation usually happens where when you first arrive, you think you're watching one thing. And then by the time you've left, the play feels like it's about something else entirely. Almost like if you were asked at interval, what's this play about? You'd give a different answer to when you walk out. So that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy his works. And this was beautiful for many reasons. One thing I loved about it is it had, I think, 10 female actresses of an ensemble of maybe 14. And I think maybe it's the only play I've ever been to see, even though it was written by a man, where the men were kind of useless and almost irrelevant.
There were props.
They had a purpose to the world, but they were almost, it felt like when they appeared, like they were kind of like the sideshow, distracting you for a moment from the actual world of
story.
the play. And the reason there are so many women is because it's about a family of 4 girls and a single mother. And the story takes place in 2 times. So when they're all children in the 1970s, they live in this hotel in Blackpool called the Sea View Hotel, but it has no view of the sea.
I love that already. That's already so good.
Yeah. Their mother has this vision that they'll grow up and be the next Andrew sisters. So this kind of like singing sensation that will go to Hollywood. So there's lots of kind of music and dance and performance in the show.
Oh, I love that.
And then the second half of the narrative is set in the present day when their mother's passing away. The girls have kind of been separated for most of their adult life, and they're all coming back together for the passing of their mother. And we're kind of like, you know, the mystery is unraveling of why these women who were so close when they were young have been apart for so many years. And, you know, it's about what happens when we come together because someone is dying and moving on, and all of those kind of strange conversations and feelings that can come up and don't necessarily get resolved, but that kind of death can bring about. So yeah, there was lots I loved about it. The stage in particular, it was like this 3-story doll house, like with a cross cut section. So you were seeing into the rooms of the hotel, and there was this staircase that went up several stories. So it like went up right into the rafters, and someone could like run up to go up to some room, and you'd kind of watch their legs disappearing, and you never knew what was upstairs. And then it was on a revolve. So the present was on one side of the stage and the past was on the other. The public kind of like front of the hotel was one side, and the private family rooms were the other.
Derek's jaw is dropping.
That's like
Scrape your jaw off the
that is brilliant, like stage production.
It is.
I've always wanted to see a play with like really great stage production because I don't think I've ever been to one. I wanted to ask Ax something because sounds like you've got heaps of experience with like plays and stuff. I have so one of my favorite like film directors and writers is Martin McDonagh. And Martin McDonagh is like famous, also like, a huge playwright. And then like I can't remember which play it was when he finished, and he was like, anyway, I've finished plays. Plays are shit now, and I'm gonna go do movies because plays are an inferior art form. He had like this famous speech where he just like ragged on about it. And I was watching an interview with him. So he's kind of a dick, obviously. But I was watching an interview with him where he was talking about the first time he made a movie. He had this big thing where he's like, I don't want to make a playwright's movie. And I still don't really know what that means. Would you have like any... I think I'm curious to be like, what is...
Yeah, what is a playwright's movie?
Yeah, what would be a playwright's movie? What is a play? What makes a play different from a movie, I guess, in the way that like brings the audience in or like engages with the audience?
I mean, that's a fun question. I think it's hard to explain what he meant because there are probably several different things that he could have meant.
Yeah, right.
Martin McDonagh, Irish playwright who writes these kind of black comedies. So The Lieutenant of Inishmore is one of his most famous. They're like absurdist and violent and farcical. And yeah, I guess in terms of the difference, I feel like cinema is usually more just like presenting the story to you and taking you through it. So I don't know, like maybe he was talking about like he just wanted to make things that were more about taking you on a journey rather than putting you in a seat to make you like think really critically.
I guess that makes sense. So that like immersion element to like plays, that's really big, right? So it's about, I never thought about that before. It's like pulling people half out, pushing them back in. My jaw was dropping before. Like never seen.
Hey, where should I start with Martin McDonagh? I've never read or seen any of his work. Where should I start?
In Bruges, probably.
In Bruges, okay. Oh wait, I think I've heard of it. Have you mentioned it to me before?
Yeah, I probably would have.
Yeah,
it's one of those annoying like movie guy movies, I think.
Oh, okay. I think you said this exact thing.
Yeah, I try not
time.
to be like a movie guy.
What do you mean you are? It's
guy,
fine.
but like, yeah,
it's fine.
It's yeah.
We love you, Derek. LP needs a movie guy.
Like if I ever consume a play, it's usually just reading it. Like I'm never watching a play. I just find reading scripts really enjoyable because usually when I'm watching a film anyway, or I'm watching anything, I'm trying to imagine what the script looks like. Like it's like usually that's what I'm like thinking about. I'm like what would you have to write in order for someone to know what you were talking about to do this thing?
100%. I love buying a script at the end of a play to like try and work out how much creative license has been taken, or like, yeah, as you say, like what would have had to be put down for them to get to what you've just seen.
I love that.
And I think for plays, right, it's the playwright is usually in charge of production and stuff, and like direct, like they're not directing, but they're the ones in charge of the play, like when it's first released or whatever.
There are lots of different creative relationships. So there are very collaborative spaces where a playwright might also dabble in directing. Or Jez Butterworth, this production, Hills of California, was actually directed by Sam Mendes.
No way. This is the best.
Who's Sam Mendes? Oh my god.
Spider-Man? Did he do Spider-Man?
Yeah, I think he's done some big...
Yeah, he did Spider-Man, that James Bond movie.
He did 1917.
Yeah.
Oh.
He works with Roger Deakins a lot. Like, I think maybe Skyfall?
Yeah, Skyfall. Yeah.
So that's like an interesting like reverse, because I don't know Sam Mendes' career intimately, so he might have done plays before he did film.
Yeah.
But to be working predominantly in film and then to come back to the stage.
Yeah.
Like the question you posed about like what are the differences in terms of the storytelling and the audience experience.
Yeah, I'd be curious to be like, because that sounds, so if he like that makes sense. Like that's it's like a huge director, right? That heaps of money be poured into that, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was on the West End, so I'm sure they had a solid budget.
So what was it? Jez Butterworth?
Jez Butterworth. I love his name.
Yeah, I was like, you were saying the name a lot.
It's a great
It
name.
really rolls off the tongue.
The play is called The Hills of California.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. Would you ever write a play for the stage, Derek?
I would, if any. Yeah. Why would? Yeah, of course. If I could, I would.
Okay. Well, let's see how our collaborative script writing goes this time. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think we'll do fine. I'm sure we'll do fine. It's the acting bit that I'm worried about. Okay, so some questions about All the Best podcasts. So this is a question for both of you. How did you join the All the Best team?
Maybe I'll start just I can set the show up a little bit. So I joined All the Best 2 years ago. I joined as production manager of the show. All the Best has had many, many different people looking after it. And yeah, part of the nature of the program is that it's always there for the next bunch of people who want to learn to make audio stories. And for there to be a home if you have a kind of quirky story that you feel really passionate about or you think needs to be heard and it doesn't have a natural home in the mainstream media. So we have, on our 30-minute show that goes out on as a podcast, but also on the radio, you'll hear something completely different every week. We kind of say like, expect the unexpected. It can be someone who's gone to Chile in search of their roots, and they're telling you a personal narrative and interweaving lots of field recordings from their
love that
actual
episode.
trip. That's a beautiful one called Grandmotherland. Other episodes are poets or writers who have like brought in work that they have a vision for why it would come alive, or have a sound world to it that could be brought to life. And we do adaptations of work. We have people who come in and do like audio drama or fiction, so it's completely fantastical or even farcical. So like you guys will be working on. So yeah, that's a little bit about the show. And I basically had been living in the UK for about 5 years, and I'd made my way into podcasting. And then when I came back to Australia, a spot had opened up in the team that looked after the show. And I just thought, what could be cooler than like working on different stories every single week? And yeah, basically helping creatives get their stories told. So yeah, that's how I fell into it.
It really is an incredible mission, and I'm so glad and honored to be working with All the Best.
We're so delighted to have you guys making a story with us.
It's going to be a really different kind of story. Well, it's the unexpected. We definitely deliver on that, I think. We'll just try to make it really funny. So
You can't say that, because if you say that and then it comes out and it's not funny, it'll be horrendous.
we have to
But
believe
it
in
will
ourselves.
still be unexpected.
Yes.
They'll be like, wow,
it
this
will
was
be.
really not good.
Yeah.
I cannot believe this. Phoebe, I think you use the word like story makers a lot, and it's not something I've ever heard before. And I'm sure that it's very intentional, because it sounds very intentional. Is there a reason you use that word in particular, or?
Yeah,
It's a
that's
great
a really
word.
good question. I am intentional about that word. And that's because my experience of like media and creative arts industries in my life has been that most stories often exist in more than one form in order to reach different audiences. Just in the way that you guys were talking about this podcast, maybe also being video, about podcasts being radio, about cinema and film and everything else. And so I think it's really important that All the Best isn't just a space if you want to be in radio or you want to be in podcasting. I think it's a space if you are a storyteller or you have a story to tell. You can come from a completely different background, or you can even already know what your calling is and it's something different, but audio can still be a space for you to come and explore, whether it's, adapting a work or a story that you've already created somewhere else, or sometimes audio is actually even a really exciting space if you want to try and flesh out what a story is and then you want to take it and put it into another form. So that's why I use the word story maker, because, if you're a sound designer who's creating the sound world to a script that someone else has written, I still see you as being a story maker. You're helping that story come to life, or maybe in your own way, you're even telling that story in its own form.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
I just remember like reading something, an email that you sent, and I thought, oh, that's like interesting. I've never heard that before.
It's such a cool word.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's this, because otherwise you're bottlenecked into like, oh, you're and it doesn't make sense, like, right? Like in kind of the zeitgeist we're at the moment. We were talking earlier about like multimedia, or the idea of, I remember that like the first time I ever came across it in an effective way, because I'd always kind of thought, I don't know if you guys had this experience when you're in like school or something, they're like, oh, do a multimedia project. And it was always the shittest. But then I remember like the first time I saw it done well was like, I think like Childish Gambino put out an album like because of the internet. And then like in order to promote it, like he had this like all these fake Tumblr accounts and then like he would perform on the street and like clips of that would get uploaded, and there would be like the screenplay that came with the album, and then the like it also had like little video clips that were made and stuff like that. And I think it's a piecemeal way of telling a story is a really cool way to tell a story.
He's a story maker.
Yeah.
He's the king of the story makers.
Well, it's like all content exists in an ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, you know, what Isabella does with All the Best, you know, she's making a story at the moment, but every time she makes a social media post to share someone else's story, she's telling the story of the story. She's working out how in 30 seconds or 60 seconds you tell someone what this story is. And that involves an act of storytelling.
Yes, indeed, as I've learned. But yeah, I think to be an artist in today's world, right? It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for you to be proficient in many different mediums. That's kind of what it takes now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing overall. I mean, they all tap into the same creative kind of ability that you have, and then they do encourage you to venture into different avenues.
It's the idea of content, right? Like content as separate from, or content as part of art. Like it's weird when you talk about consuming content. Like, what does that mean? What is content? What is...
Well, content is like stories with varying levels of art in it, right? Varying levels of artistic achievement.
I guess achievement.
I think we have a bit more time to hear from Isabella's project with All the Best. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've been volunteering for 2 years-ish, a little less. So, but I've made a story. So this is really exciting that I get to do the thing that I've been
helping other people.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
It's a story about protesting and kind of the guilt from not doing enough and kind of interrogating that feeling. And so for that, I interviewed 2 people. I interviewed Mardo, who organizes Sydney's Ride for Palestine. So he organizes like bike rides around Sydney, and Annie, who is an emerging rider. And I asked them about their different ways of protesting, if they feel guilty. So this story is an interview, but also my own personal reflections about protesting and how they've changed after talking to them. Feeling confident in what I'm doing is good enough, and not having to, like, not comparing myself to what other people are doing, because everyone has their own situation, and so they're obviously only doing what they can do in like their own capacity. So that relativity doesn't mean that what I'm doing is less or not enough. Yeah,
absolutely. I feel like I mean, comparing yourself to other people is always a bit of a trap, right? Like, even especially in terms of something like activism and protesting, it's like so many people have their own approach to things. Like, you can't compare yourself to, say, for example, a millionaire who donates $1 million to charity every year. Like, there's always going to be that gap, I guess. Yeah, it's about what it means to you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no. And I think particularly, it's about Palestine. You know, it's, from talking with Mardo, it's a lifelong commitment to protesting and activism. So, you know, thinking about what you can do throughout your life, I guess.
Exactly.
That works towards it, you know?
That's such a good
like
point.
A one-off.
Yeah, I think with all these, like, a lot of times social movements can feel like a fad when they appear in the news. But then think about it, it's really a lifelong thing that you can commit your life to if you truly believe in it. It's a long career, not just a fad that pops up in the news and you care about it when it pops up in the news.
It's kind of interesting, the idea of protesting, because for some reason, and I don't know if it's just the way that history looks at protests, but they're viewed as kind of discrete places in time, and like events, even they're treated as events. And it's kind of odd whereas activism, from talking to people who are a part of it, it's more just being politically engaged. Like, it's just having an active political life, right? It's no different from being, you know, like, oh, I'm a Labour supporter, I'm a whatever supporter, like, oh, I'm, you know, the climate activist or whatever the case is. And so when you think about it that way, it's about the engagement. It's not about like, thinking directly about, how I've contributed this many dollars, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. It's like a long-term engagement. Yeah, okay. It's time to wrap up this episode. Is there any other way for people to get involved with All the Best?
Yeah, absolutely. We exist for people to come and learn and make and tell their stories. So if you're someone who's never even touched audio, you can come along. Equally, if you've done it for years and years and you just want to come and find some fellow nerds, come along as well. We have Audio Club, which are the monthly meetups. We have pitch call-outs, so people can pitch story ideas that they want to make for broadcast on the show. And through that process, we pair you with a supervising producer. So that's a mentor who's in the industry. We'll try and find someone who really aligns with your story or the kind of skill set that you want to develop. So our next pitch call-outs will actually be open probably by the time this podcast is out. In early September this year, but they happen about 4 times a year, so you can always check in. And then the big new thing we have happening is All the Best is going to have an Emerging Audio Makers Fellowship. So the first round of it is going to run next year. It's going to be an opportunity that goes to 4 different creatives to make a feature-length work. There's a kind of quite significant honorarium, so some money that will go to each of the audio makers, and lots of support and kind of facilitation and mentorship as well. So we're going to be opening the form for applicants from mid-September. So if you're interested in learning more about the show, listening, or getting involved in any of those ways, you can just head to our website. That's www.allthebestradio.com, or you can find us on Instagram at allthebestradio.
Woohoo! It's really become my thing now. Thank you so much to everyone. So that's it for today's episode of Licensed Poetics. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Fang Ling, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!
Woohoo!
Thank you. Bye.
Woohoo!